Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the national security team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the vice commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
We're getting new information tonight about the much-anticipated Israeli offensive into southern Gaza. This comes amid increased activity on a site intended to allow additional humanitarian aid to flow into the region. Correspondent Jeff Paul is in Tel Aviv tonight.
A new satellite image appears to show construction of an aid port near Gaza City. The site will eventually be the home of a temporary U.S. military pier, similar to this one, that's currently being built miles offshore. As the war in Gaza continues, security concerns were heightened this week when the port came under fire during a mortar attack.
This occurred before any U.S. forces, have started moving anything. There'll be no U.S. forces on the ground.
All of this happening as Israel signals it's getting closer to a major ground operation in the southern city of Rafah. It's home to an estimated 1.3 million civilians seeking shelter from the war. Many are now forced to leave once again.
This is the third time we're relocating. There's no safety anywhere.
Tents are now going up a few miles north of Rafah in Deir al-Balah as civilians try to avoid the fighting.
We came here and there's been shelling. Several strikes last night, and they tell you it's a safe place. How is it a safe place?
Beyond Gaza's borders, tensions are running high throughout Israel. Crowds demonstrating in both Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, frustrated by a lack of progress on a hostage deal. Families of the 133 still missing, including 8 Americans, are pushing world leaders to do more.
So I ask everyone to bring back their focus to the release of the hostages, because that will also solve so many of the other issues.
President Biden's national security advisor Jake Sullivan said today he saw fresh momentum in ongoing hostage talks. However, Hamas says it will not back down from its demands for a permanent ceasefire and a full withdrawal of Israeli troops, something Israel has rejected.
U.S. troops will be in combat over that Gaza pier. I guarantee it. Welcome back to More War Monday here on the Rob Maness Show live on Patriot.tv and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, we've been warning Americans about the risks being taken in the Department of Defense with this politically driven Gaza pier operation. And of course, our warnings are pretty accurate. Reporting by the Maritime Executive last week stated that shoreside construction operations for the U.S. Maritime Aid Corridor to Gaza had come under a mortar fire from Palestinian militants, Israeli sources told AP. The Israeli outlet I-24 reported that the pier came under attack Wednesday while UN personnel were on the scene and that several pieces of equipment were damaged. One person even suffered minor injuries, the outlet said. Well, my guest today in the first half of the show has quite a bit to discuss with us about this issue and more about the Gaza war. And during the second half of the show today, we'll continue our discussion from last Thursday, exposing the damage that DEI is doing to the U.S. military. And my guest now is Colonel U.S. Army retired John Mills, who's the former Director of Cybersecurity Policy Strategy and International Affairs at DOD. And is a senior fellow at the Center for Security Policy and has authored 2 books, his latest being The War Against the Deep State, which you can get at Amazon. John, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Well, thank you, Rob. You can also get that book at my store. Just use your code. Use code, which code is it, Rob?
Maness, M-A-N-E-S-S.
Yeah. So there you go.
Thanks for reminding me of that. I always forget those, and I never make any money. But thank you. I appreciate it, John.
Signed copies available on my store. So thank you, Rob. And yeah, this situation is pretty much playing out almost exactly as I was concerned about. As just this, we got Major General Pat Ryder, actually kind of a first. I think he's one of the first uniform types encumbering the public affairs role that they elevated to 2-star. Kirby, I think, went to 1-star and that was it. He was out the door, and normally that's a 1-star position. So obviously they're right. That's the real story, is Pat Ryder going to 2 stars. But this whole thing is, it's a minor wound. It's offensive when they just say they were just wounded. They were just wounded. Well, when you lose an arm, a leg, an eye, that's not just being wounded. That's a pretty catastrophic event. So they're not always truthful on these situations when somebody's just wounded. This should have been what do you do? What are your 2 primary, your order of work when you occupy a new position? Security and comms. Security and comms. In this situation, where was the Army has some what are called Centurion units, which are the Navy Gatling gun on a flatbed truck. Where were those? That should have been one of the first things set up. It doesn't appear that they've set up anything to counter the the mortar or rocket or drone fire. So this is looking like Abbey Gate or Marine Beirut Barracks 2.0. Very concerning, but this is what you get out of this administration. It's America last. They forget the basics. They put our troops in very vulnerable positions and just tell them, just do something. No, we properly resource them as best we can. It's never going to be perfect. I know that, but come on, we had plenty of time to plan for this, plenty of time to reallocate some of the small number of Centurion and other capabilities to protect that beach, that pier head that's going on. And so this is just a very, very tenuous situation.
Yeah, I was glad to see that one of my senators, Senator Roger Wicker, who's the senior Republican on the Senate Armed Services Committee, called out the Biden administration. He said that, and I'll quote, that they're putting our American service members in a very difficult position, and he should cancel the mission, to paraphrase Roger Wicker. And I completely agree with him. It's good to see that at least somebody with power in the United States government is calling Biden and his administration out, man. The who is providing security on that shore side of the construction right now? Do we even know? It's not is it Americans?
That's a great question. That's part of now. You can say that there's operational security matters. They're not talking about it. Yeah, okay, I got it. But internally, and Israel, used to be under European command, and that was part of the reasons it had been under European command was because we had missile defense plans for Israel going back 15 years, and when the Iranians shot that volley, that showed that years and years of the contingency plans that included coalition partners on ballistic missile defense worked. Okay, great. Yeah. But we need to make sure, and this is Biden as the commander in chief for the time being, it's his responsibility to ensure that the operational commander on the ground, and we've seen videos of the Central Command commander Kurilla has actually been on site, like during the weekend volley. He was personally on site orchestrating the U.S. support. But so there's some kind of probably 07, 08 responsible, the Joint Force Commander responsible, because this is both Army resources and Navy resources working to build this pier and beachhead. So there has to be a Joint Force Commander, and part of that is where is the security and what is the security plan? And again, the Marines have actually been doing some of the most rapid. Our air defense capabilities have lapsed over 20 years of non-use. Now we're realizing we're in contested environments, and the Marines have actually been very good about bringing on some innovative solutions quickly. We need to get some of those to ensure that beachhead, and shooting down a mortar round is actually fairly simple math at this point in time in the year 2024. We've shown it can be done over and over again. So where are these capabilities, and why weren't these mortar rounds shot down? And it wasn't clear if it was mortar or rockets.
Especially in this situation, because you have a limited geometry with the the water being on one half of the issue, so they can't fire from there, or at least we don't think they can. So I mean, it should be very easy to have a system set up that could eliminate that. Nobody would ever, at least on our side, would ever get hurt. But just to show you how complicated this situation is going to develop into, reporting this morning that 5 Palestinians were killed by an airdropped pallet of aid that the parachute didn't open, and the clip that Fox showed is a C-17 dropping these massive amount of parachute pallets that are parachuting in, and you see streamers coming from one of the pallets. The C-17 is so low that it's clearly within the threat envelope of man pads. Obviously, their speed is slow enough, and their altitude being low, they're clearly in that threat envelope from a manned portable air defense system like a Stinger. And those kind of systems, it's clearly within the threat envelope of any type of SAM that they could get their hands on. And quite frankly, we're really exposing ourselves. And now we've accidentally killed 5 Palestinians. So I would expect there's going to be more firing and more casualties as Americans continue to get more and more involved.
Yeah, airdrops are expensive. They are not your most efficient way to deliver resources. They make great camera fodder for B-roll footage, and people, because a lot of times you got to realize, especially with this administration, they just want to feel good about themselves. They don't care about the reality. So you throw away a lot of expensive resources on these airdrops. They don't care. Now, they also have, I'm used to working with the Ram Air parachutes, where you have a controller on the ground actually landing these parachutes. The shots I saw were just simple unguided parachute drops, which they're going to land wherever they land. And these can be fairly substantial weight loads that are extremely dangerous, and you're just dumping them on a hunger crazed mob. Bad things are going to happen. Very, very shoddy. But again, it makes great B-roll footage, so that's what's important.
Yeah, until you kill some of them, which we just did, and of course the reporting wouldn't say what aircraft did it, but it's obvious who is dropping relief supplies there. The United States Air Force is doing it. That's unfortunate. It's very, very dicey, very tenuous and dicey. Before we go to the break, John, just describe for folks how this system is going to work. You can see the pier being built out from the shore, and then I guess the JLOT system, the Joint Logistics Over the Shore system, is out in the water, and they're building a piece there that they will push into and connect to that pier eventually.
Well, yeah, it's the JLOTs is all the way from the end of the dirt over the beach out to the ship, and there's both Navy ships and also several Army ships, landing ships that are being used. One of the big Navy ships had been brought out of the Ready Reserve Force, and it broke down halfway there and had to return back to America for repairs. So it shows the poor condition of our sea lift, our Ready Reserve sea lift capability. But these are floating causeways. They're called MCS, modular causeway systems. You can make this to meet any arrangement you want. But there's a finite number of these causeways, and I noticed in public reporting, frankly, a lot of these causeways, there's not a whole lot, and a number of them had essentially been in storage for years. And there's maintenance you got to do on these things. They become rust buckets. There's a lot of connection assemblies and potentially power connections and all kinds of things. As you know, if you're not pulling maintenance on it and you pull it out of storage and it's been essentially out in the environment with no maintenance for, even a short period of time, things don't work. And the 25 budget, I looked up the specific line item for this in Army on the modular causeway system. Budget went down. Okay, not up, down. And I guarantee you, once this is set up, we will never see the MCS sections again. They're gone. Just write them off. And so it's pretty pathetic.
It is. One of the ships even had so many problems they had to turn around and go back to the United States before it ended up getting over there. Well, we got to take this break. When we come back, I want to talk about the Rafah operation. It looks like it's kicking off in the geopolitics of that and the dangers that the United States really is creating for the Israeli Defense Forces, in my opinion. When we come back right after these messages, then we'll get to the hand in the audience after the break, too. I'm Rob Maness. We'll be right back.
Darktalk.com, darktalk.com. Now you hit that website, that's exclusive to Patriot.tv, so you're able to also help your family and support our network to keep us going as well. Let's go to not only satellite phones, but then you just have regular phones as well, regular mobile phones as well. So you can click satellite phones, or you back to the top, click secure phones. So this gives you various cell phones.
We are protecting your privacy in ways that no one else does. We've talked about how your cell phone is a government tracking device, how it archives where you've been, what you're up to, who you're talking with, what you're searching on the web, and that information is not private. It is available to the cell phone companies and often sold or used against people in court, right? With these phones, and I'm not trying to say that these are for criminals, these are for people who want the privacy that they are afforded by the Constitution, right? Because we don't think that it's our job to track you. It is our job to provide you with communications so you can go about your daily life.
We've learned through the pandemic we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. Even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
Jonathan, we've been waiting on this expected Rafah offensive for months now, based upon all the reporting, based upon just logic, trying to move individuals to a humanitarian zone. It feels like it is imminent. What do you make of the timing? Why now?
Well, it could be a couple things. There could be intelligence about the different hostages that are still being held in that particular area. It could be about the 1,000, they estimate 1,000 Hamas soldiers that are in that area and what they could be particularly planning themselves. But I think more than anything, I think it's just time, Todd. I think the tactics and the strategy that that Israel is trying to accomplish, they're having to potentially move forward quicker, or this just may be the time that they've decided that they need to go into that area. But right now the pressure is on, I believe, as you're starting to see across these campuses and social media and media in general, the pressure is on for Israel to get through this and wrap it up, especially with the talks that just are breaking down because Hamas and Israel can't come to terms with what they want.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and, U.S. combat troops will probably get involved against Hamas in this Gaza operation if things continue down the path that we're observing now. But it looks like the operation may be kicking off that the Israelis have been talking about, and the Biden administration has been trying to delay and do some kind of trade for a permanent ceasefire and hostages, which Hamas, being the terrorist and the Nazi atrocity creators that they are, continue to play games with. So maybe the Israelis are going to do the right thing and go ahead and finish this operation and finish off Hamas, which is what their mission really should be, in my professional military opinion anyway. We're talking with retired U.S. Army Colonel John Mills, also a former senior DoD Defense Department official and an author. Latest book's War Against the Deep State. And John, welcome back. Let's take a question from the audience. We've got one hand up over there. Before we dive into this, I got a feeling this question from AJ is probably directly related to the Rafah operation. Go ahead, AJ.
Thank you for the mic, Colonel Maness. Colonel Mills, great to hear your voice again, sir. The question pertains to the reporting that just came out about 3 hours ago from UK. The source being Express UK, stating British snipers will safeguard the Gaza aid pier from potential Hamas attacks, ensuring the safety of the humanitarian operation. Now, my concern is that maybe something happening to any of these snipers, not necessarily that they're close by, obviously they're snipers, but this would possibly open another tangential path for UK to force the US's hand in to put boots on the ground. Just an idea, sir. What's your opinion? Thank you so much for the mic.
Great question.
Well, thank you, AJ. And I had not heard that. The issue is mortar rounds, rockets, and drones. I don't know what snipers are going to do against that. So if this is true, it sounds like a possible arrangement. I don't know what this is going to accomplish other than snare everybody in additional conflict. Because I guarantee you what's going to happen is Hamas is going to claim that 50 innocent children were killed first round shot off by this. I'm assuming pretty likely it's going to be an SAS or SBS sniper. They're special operations elements. I just odd announcement. It sounds totally legitimate, but all that does is just ensnare everyone into the morass of this Hamas trap. So I don't like this.
Yeah, I agree, John. I mean, just like we're talking about where the 5 Palestinians unfortunately were killed by the aid pallet being airdropped. This just puts layer upon layer of complexity. And potential harm to friendly forces and friendlies that are Palestinian. If they're friendlies, people that don't support Hamas, even though there's not that many of them from polling data. There are some there. And one of the other things that's weird about what's been being reported today, I guess the UNWRA is saying we're not going to leave Rafah, and of course most people know, at least in our reporting, that the UNWRA had some of their people on the October 7th operation, along with the Hamas units that were with them and supporting them and actually engaging in those types of operations. So it looks like the UN organization is setting up to continue to try to hammer the Israelis and the Israeli Defense Forces by, coming up with fake war crimes, trying to get the ICC to charge some of the units and those kind of things. It's just a path to disaster, in my opinion.
I listen, we're noodling with everything. You got Jake Sullivan, micromanaging the ammunition, the artillery shell flow to Israel. They're having to fly out and explain their assault plans to a joint staff delegation. If I was on the joint staff, I would be embarrassed to have to go through these plans with a trusted partner. That is so clearly communicating distrust. I mean, come on. I think the Israelis have done an incredible job and have taken a lot of casualties because of this, trying to minimize casualties, which means a lot more of their forces have been killed. So this is such a pathetic mess. Hamas is a terrorist group. They are a designated terrorist group. They need to be eliminated. Cut it out and stop this. Well, the ICTY might be bringing war crimes trials against Netanyahu. Well, I wonder who's stoking that in the background, Jake Sullivan. I mean, this is ridiculous. And, doing this because they're concerned about Michigan and non-turnout in the November election in Michigan because of anger and distrust over the way Biden has been handling this. This is not any way to run the country or micromanage and offend a trusted partner.
Yeah, exactly. We see this happening, and I mentioned in my opening that it's politically motivated. The Gaza Pier issue, it's politically motivated because of the election. It is exactly what is going on, and it's so obvious and clear that we see that. And I wanted to give you a chance before. I know I got to let you go here in a couple of minutes, but I wanted to give you a chance to just take a stab at the protests that are going on university campuses and really all around the world, and these cries that the Israeli Defense Forces is conducting genocide on the Hamas people and those kind of things. Because honestly, they're a highly professional military organization. They've gone way above and beyond. They've already dropped leaflets over the last few hours to tell people to evacuate. And of course, Hamas is once again apparently partnering with the UNWRA, is what it sounds like to me, not letting people evacuate, trying to use the innocent civilians, if there are any, as human shields. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, we have to do a complete review. The whole purpose, if you look at the whole purpose of the UN in today's environment, it is unusually weighted toward the Gaza situation. It's created a jobs program and, essentially an American Indian reservation camp, which has destroyed Native American culture in America. That's what's going on. So we got to figure out the UN's role in all of this. But we have to let Israel take care of Hamas. Listen, if this was genocide, there would be zero Israeli casualties on the ground assault inside of Gaza. There's a lot of Israeli casualties. I think there's been 200 to 500 killed easily and many more wounded. So this is just, we are enabling additional bloodshed and suffering with this micromanagement of Israel, which is given all evidence of the attempt at the most humane urban combat, if there is such a thing, ever. And it's just shameful what's going on. And Hamas is a designated terrorist group, even by the Biden administration. So they got to cut it out. But they're just they can't help it in their DNA. They're just duplicitous, and they can't make their minds up on these matters.
Exactly right. And it puts our folks in danger and our allies in danger. Well, John, thanks for joining us today. I know you got to run, and I've had your Getter account up. You can find him at Colonel Rhett John there on Substack and everything. And, of course, don't forget the books, The Nation Will Follow and War Against the Deep State. We will look forward to having you back next time.
You bet, Rob. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. And right after this break, we'll dive into the military DEI subject that we left off with last Thursday. And the retired Air Force 3-star general that is the chairman of STARS, Stand Together Against Racism and Radicalism in the Services, his episodes and appearance on Fox and Friends yesterday morning will show when we come back from the break, and we'll open it up to the audience for questions because y'all didn't get a chance to engage on the subject last week. So I look forward to that. I'm Rob Maness. We'll be right back.
Hi neighbor, Pat Boone here. Today, I want to help you find some peace of mind concerning your money. Like it or not, we're all living in a financial war zone. That's right. We're watching our hard-earned dollars get crushed by inflation. In fact, recently inflation reached its highest level in 40 years. And on top of that, cash, which has always represented freedom and privacy, is more and more being replaced by a cashless system. That's right. Powerful forces are definitely waging a war against cash. So I'm encouraging you to prepare before it's too late. Call or text the number on the screen for a free report, The Secret War on Cash from Swiss America. Discover how a few simple steps can protect your money as well as your privacy and your peace of mind. So call or text for your free report, The Secret War on Cash, and make sure to mention Pat Boone sent you.
BellaPatriot.com. Let me explain to you what this is. This is an elixir. It's a daily elixir. It is a collagen. It also has something known as astaxanthin that crosses the brain-blood barrier, that's loaded with antioxidants to take on the free radicals. And then it has something called cat's claw. That is from a bark on a vine in Peru. So these are three very powerful ingredients. Now, if you go to BellaPatriot.com, there are your science and clinical trials, right? And if you want to read the science, there it is. You don't get nearly 80 clinical trials for nothing. So again, you want to talk about science, the information behind it, this is it. We highly urge you to check it out. The results for Melissa and I have been very powerful. She and I take it each and every day. It's very simple. You just rip the top, drink it, and then throw away the container. We would urge you to go there, order it now, click and order now, and get your subscription.
Controversy over a Defense Department DEI hearing. We're talking to a lieutenant general who wanted to attend but couldn't.
On DEI. The hearing, which originally was supposed to be in person, was moved to a virtual setting at the last minute after many had already booked their flights. And some, like the image you're seeing here, suggesting they were kicked out of the virtual meeting. I don't know if we have the image, but or weren't able to join at all. The veterans wanted to speak out against the negative impact of woke ideology in our military, including our next guest, a U.S. Air Force veteran who's also part of STARS, which stands for Stand Together Against Racism and Radicalism in the Services. Served our country as a 3-star, Lieutenant General Rod Bishop. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. You commanded tens of thousands. There was a public hearing that was supposed to happen. It was supposed to be in person, then they moved it online, and then they limited it to 100 people, and you were not allowed in. What is this DEI committee, first of all, and what was this meeting about?
So, Pete, thanks for finally getting to meet you. This committee, DACODI, Defense Advisory Committee on Diversity and Inclusion, is a follow-on to another organization that kind of flew beneath the radar for many years. That organization was called Military Leadership and Diversity Commission. And what these two committees are doing, the first one wrote the blueprint and created the foundation for this DEI empire in our United States military.
Why is the DOD so obsessed with DEI? I know in my background, I know in yours, race was something that was not, it wasn't a factor. It wasn't how we looked at soldiers or airmen. Now they've made it an obsession with DEI. Why is that?
Pete, I think you nailed it a couple of weeks ago when you announced your new book, The War on Warriors. It's being pushed upon the military by some political ideologues. And unfortunately, it is unadulterated, undeniable, easily proven Marxist-based ideology that's being forced down the throats of our servicemen. Our own DOD is not only facilitating it, they've built an empire to track it and to make sure that the provisions of what they're ordering are being carried out.
General, why are other generals going along with this? You're standing up, other generals, other colonels are standing up. Why are people in power who know better than this allowing this dangerous ideology to infiltrate the ranks?
You know, Pete, at first I wanted to give the general officers and the leaders the benefit of the doubt. but there's just so much on this now that they just have to know, that those Marxist roots. When I talk about the Marxist roots, people sometimes say, "Hey, come on, let's be positive." Well, if it didn't come from the Frankfurt School, which was previously known as the Marxist School, that
Yes.
set up shop in Colombia, of all places, still a hotbed of leftist ideology, then where did it come from? So I think you nailed it a couple of weeks ago when you said, yeah, the leaders of today, unfortunately, just don't seem to have the moral courage to stand up against this. They're too potentially concerned with their next promotion.
That's exactly right. There's a feedback loop that incentivizes them to do nothing and to go along with the ideologue so that they can get promoted and then get future jobs when they leave the military. By the way, you're talking to, you hear from, by the way, check out their website, stars.us, STARRS.us, because the amount of examples that you have from people actively serving, it's an amazing resource, people that reach out and share their stories. When you hear from people serving and the impact of this DEI ideology, what's the impact on units, on readiness, on capabilities?
Unfortunately, negative impact all the way around, Pete. You asked me in a comm yesterday why this matters. It matters because there's two organizations, I think, in our United States that we least likely want to have this indoctrination taking place. Our K through 12, the young impressionable minds of our kids. And you attack that in the battle for the American mind. Thank you. And the other one is the military. I mean, the people who write a blank check as collateral with their lives. Those are the two organizations. And now you're attacking that with War on Warriors. Thank you again for that. So who is going to want to fight for our country if we're all taught from kindergarten that we're a racist and a bad country? I mean, I don't think I would have raised my hand and said, no, yeah, I'm going to take this oath of office.
Bingo. And that's why they can't fill the ranks right now. It's a self-inflicted wound. It's almost like some of the top might want it that way. Lieutenant General Rod Bishop, thank you for your service, first in uniform, now afterwards. And the organization, again, is stars.us with two R's. Check him out. Appreciate your time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
You got it. By the way, we reached out to
Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and the greatest threat to you, the American citizen, is what General Bishop and Pete Hegseth were just talking about there, and it's why I will continue to cover this story. I'm on the transparency. I am on the board of advisors for stars.us. That's their website, stars.us. If you want to go and you can read over 1,000 comments from Americans that are cadets, former military service members, active military service members, parents of service members, and what they're saying about what's actually happening on the ground with this infection and rot inside America's greatest institution of liberty. Without the American Armed Forces, there would have been no Constitution of the United States and the government we have today. Think about that. This is the greatest threat. So I want to continue this discussion with our audience because we didn't have a chance to engage on it last Thursday, on Truth Thursday, when I had the Vice Chairman, Major General Joe Arbuckle, of STARS on, and the President and CEO of STARS, Air Force retired Colonel Ron Scott, were on last week. And now we have these clips from Fox. Thankfully, Pete covered this with Lieutenant General Bishop. Shell, I want to go ahead and start the conversation with the audience. I know I saw a hand up before we went to the break. And let's talk about this because it's that important.
All right, so we have Chris.
Good morning, Colonel. First, I want to say one thing and ask you, why doesn't Benjamin Netanyahu just go ahead? Does he have the capabilities to wipe them out and just go ahead and do it, get it done with, quit dropping stuff? And on this DEI, I know so many people that left the military when they wanted to jab them, and it's just getting worse. And I just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think the unlawful order of the vaccine mandate on military personnel is part of this discussion because it's the mentality of the leadership, including the President of the United States, or at least the team that surrounds him, that promulgates his orders once they figure out an order. You can debate whether Joe Biden's actually able to give orders or not, but obviously the team is. But consider that their way of thinking is based in this Marxism that comes out of the Frankfurt School and the Columbia. The general was talking about in the clip, there was Columbia University. So all of these, like these protests in favor of Hamas and this infection that's infecting the Department of Defense using cultural Marxism, is the same set of theories. It's called critical theory, and you put a word in the middle of it like critical race theory. Yeah, you've heard of that before. Of course, they've stopped using that term and gone to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And now DEI is poison too. So they've stopped using equity as part of that, because that's where you level the playing field and you force equal outcomes, which are really unequal outcomes, and you start treating people differently based on their race. And in this case, in the DOD, they're treating white people, especially white males, differently and discriminating against them in favor of, in large part, Black Americans that aren't as highly qualified at every turn when they get the opportunity. That's why it's such a rot, because you cannot have a team, a combat team, such as the folks at the Gaza Pier effort, that doesn't have each other's backs. And when you're teaching this critical theory, it teaches that people of color are the oppressed and whites are the oppressors, and they're born that way and you can't change it. When you try to field a combat team with that foundation of knowledge, of distrust amongst each other, think about it. If a Black commander is leading a team into combat and he's got 65% white Americans as part of his team, do you think those white Americans are going to trust that Black commander if they know that the rest of the people in the U.S. Armed Forces have been trained that those white Americans are the oppressed or the oppressor, and the Black Americans are the oppressed? Do you think they're going to trust that commander that's Black, happens to be Black, based on that level of foundational knowledge? Absolutely not. And Chris, as far as the question about Benjamin Netanyahu, of course they have the capability. But he's a politician, and there are political things at play here. One, Joe Biden is losing his race for the presidency, and his team is pinning it on places like Dearborn, Michigan, which high Islamist population. The numbers in the primary votes showed that nearly 100,000 people chose to vote for somebody else instead of Joe Biden. So they're very concerned about that. I'm sure Biden is talking to Netanyahu about the help that he needs from him. And Netanyahu's a politician. As much as I admire him as far as his leadership goes, he's taking some political steps that are putting his own people in danger. And as Colonel Mills mentioned, in the last segment, his decisions are getting more Israeli Defense Force men and women killed because they're trying to do what the United States wants them to do and minimize civilian casualties, even beyond what's required by the laws of war, which is very difficult to do in the environment that they're having to fight this in. Unfortunately, it looks like Mr. Netanyahu has been making a lot of decisions and delays based on that. And the longer they delay, more people will die on both sides, and that's very unfortunate. Our recommendation here has been to do two things. One of two things. The IDF goes in and finishes the job as fast as possible, or Hamas can end this right now. All you have to do is unconditionally surrender and let all these people you're using as human shields get food and water from the aid folks, and give up your arms and surrender to Israeli forces. So one of those two things could happen. And of course, Hamas has been obstinate and is not going to do that. And the Israelis, led by Mr. Netanyahu so far, have been delayed, trying to appease Joe Biden and his administration, because, they're somewhat beholden to them because of the money and the military aid and the ability to buy more weapons and reinforce, and more rockets for the Iron Dome and those kind of things. the Israelis have to walk a somewhat tightrope on this. Well, we're going to take our last break, and when we come back, there was another conversation with the hosts of Fox and Friends after General Bishop's interview that gets a little spicy. So we'll show that, and then we'll come back for questions. I see the hand up there right after these messages on the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and we're talking about the rot of DEI in the United States Armed Forces with the audience right now. We'll be right back on Patriot.tv.
The markets are getting crazy, and now is the time to protect yourself from economic turmoil. Silver is in the headlines right now and creating lots of excitement as the price of silver is extremely attractive compared to gold. A call to Swiss America gets you the scoop on whether the silver opportunity is for real. What you'll discover will really blow your mind. Today, silver faces a huge shortage due to the rising demand by military, solar, electric cars, and computers, all of which depend on silver. But right now, silver is priced to sell according to worldwide experts. Now, to help you get started, Swiss America is offering beautiful United States Walking Liberty half dollars, issued by the U.S. Mint from 1916 to 1947 and minted in 90% pure silver for a special introductory price. Limit of $250 per customer while supplies last. So call the number on your screen or visit SwissAmerica.com, because now is the time to rediscover silver.
Sounds rolling, all 3 cameras, we're good.
Is there any regrets that you have in life? I should sit here and say, yeah, I got a lot of regrets. But when I look back on my life and I understand the lives that were lost, I mean, I'm sitting here with you. And I can tell my story.
Former National Security Advisor, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military. He was, by definition, the most dangerous possible person for Donald Trump to hire.
Brilliant military career, serving 33 years.
Why was he being so elusive? Mike Flynn told the truth and faced life in prison.
Well, the Department of Defense is under fire because they had a hearing on DEI making its way into the military. But before the hearing, they moved it to a virtual hearing to ensure, I would assume, that there's very little opportunity for any type of pushback, any type of feedback. In fact, I think they threw some people out ahead of time who were going to be anticipated providing some sort of rebuttal. And this has made people very upset. Lieutenant General Rob Bishop, he's a U.S. Air Force veteran, he is saying that Marxist ideology is being forced on servicemen. Listen to this.
Unfortunately, it is unadulterated, undeniable, easily proven Marxist-based ideology that's being forced down the throats of our servicemen. When I talk about the Marxist roots, people sometimes say, hey, come on, let's be positive. Well, if it didn't come from the Frankfurt School, which was previously known as the Marxist School that set up shop in Colombia, of all places, still a hotbed of leftist ideology, then where did it come from? So I think you nailed it a couple of weeks ago when you said, yeah, the leaders of today, unfortunately, just don't seem to have the moral courage to stand up against this. They're too potentially concerned with their next promotion.
Yeah, DEI is everywhere in the Pentagon. And so this was a hearing to talk more about how they were going to advance more diversity, equity, inclusion in the Pentagon. This outside group of generals and colonels and others said, well, we want to provide public comment. So they closed the actual meeting because they were afraid of the pushback. Then the virtual meeting, they limited to 100. So that general didn't even get into the virtual meeting. The backlash is all one way because they're saying, why are you bringing racism into the military? We got rid of it. Famously, the military was the first national integrated institution. When I served in my platoon, black, white, Hispanic, whatever, that's not what you saw. You saw Army Green. We all bled red. That's all that mattered. And what he's pointing at, but the Pentagon doesn't want to hear it because they're fully invested on it. Here's what we know for real. And I read about this in the book. There's tons of examples in here, by the way. Diversity is not our strength. The military says it all the time. Diversity is our strength. No, it's not.
Our unity is. Our unity is what makes us good at our job. Equity is the opposite of merit. The military is supposed to be a merit-based institution. Right. Equity says, no, we're going to push you through based on certain categories or certain genders or certain races. And then inclusion, well, what that's meant is if you're a first or a different or trans, well, we got to push you to the top. And it's not a reflection of your combat experience or how good of a leader you are. No, it's we need the first in this place and in that place. Of course, when we reached out to the Department of Defense, we did not hear back. They're not going to respond on this. And the Biden's Department of Defense is going to hate this book. And when they're exposed, by the way, and we give example after example, units are told, well, no, that training is classified. If anybody shares that to the media, you're in trouble. Or at West Point, oh, no, that curriculum is classified. And if you share it, you're expelled. So they're not changing who they are. They just don't want to be discovered. It's just like the teachers' unions. They know what they're doing.
That's exactly it. This is so interesting. These leftists, these Marxists, they need captive audiences, right? Like they've got students and they have to be in school, and that's when they get them. They don't let them, and they punish them if they have a different point of view. They'll get a bad grade. In this case, they won't get promoted. I'm just curious, why are we even having a discussion about allowing Marxism, communism, into our military? It's just like you were talking about the trans thing. You're like, why are we even having this debate? It's so stupid. It's so why are we letting men compete against women? Why are we letting communists write the rules in our military?
Well, we know left-wing politicians are going to push their ideologies. My issue is with generals that allowed it to happen, that didn't take their stars off their shoulder and say, I'm done. I'm with the warfighters. I'm not going to let you poison my unit. I'm not going to go backwards on issues of racial integration. I want the best fighters out there. And they didn't do it. And so they've caved. And they've given enough stuff they knew wasn't good. And then the other sycophants that are willing to do the job, they get promoted to the top. And Biden did it and Obama did it. Pretty soon you got a Pentagon full of sycophants worried about DEI and trans issues instead of, we might have to fight China. What are we going to do with that? Throw pronouns at them? That's how a lot of people feel. And that's why our recruiting numbers are in the tank. Because military families are saying, I don't want to be a part of this nonsense.
Of course not.
Anyway.
Of course not.
In case you thought I was passionate about it.
Oh, no,
The book is War on Warriors. It comes out in a month. You can pre-order it now. Yeah, throw it
I only have my phone.
I'm going to throw this book
paper.
Enough. You poison our schools. You poison everything else. Yeah. Don't poison our military.
Yeah. But you know what's at the bottom of it? It's a lack of courage. It's a
Absolutely right.
The real problem is lack of courage.
Absolutely.
It's a lack of courage. She's right. It is a lack of moral courage on our generals and admirals' part. They are allowing Marxists to control the United States Armed Forces. You heard it there. You could see all of that at stars.us. That's STARRS.us. They've got some great roll-ups of all of the media that we did all last week, calling out the Department of Defense, and this committee is the one that makes the recommendations for the Marxist policies that is destroying the United States Armed Forces as you speak, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm Rob Maness at the Rob Maness Show at Patriot.tv and our X-Aces simulcast, and we're talking with our audience about this issue and have extended the show from Thursday basically to the second half of this More War Monday show, because this issue is the biggest threat to you and me, Americans, and the future of what should be the Republic of the United States of America. And keep in mind that my dad's generation and my oldest brother's generations got 95,000 Americans killed fighting this ideology. And I spent 20 years of my 33-year career fighting this ideology, as did many of you. Well, let's go over to the audience and take some more questions. I think Low Country had their hand up, Shell, for a while.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Low Country.
Hey, good morning, y'all, and thank you for bringing me up. First of all, I want to thank you for giving that detailed explanation of exactly where this critical theory comes from, because believe it or not, a lot of people don't know. And I am very pleased to see that the number of people who understand this is actually increasing. The other thing that's important, and this really needs to be.
Do you have a question for the Colonel, Low Country?
Yeah, there is. This really needs to be clarified, is when we are discussing DEI, there seems to be a centrifugal focus on race, but I think my question for you is, why are they glossing over the fact that this includes all what they call merely ascribed marginalized groups of oppression? Also, too, we need to start talking about the fact that the whole reason it exists is capitalism. Equity is the goal, DEI is the car, and the D&I in the equity car is the gas that makes the car go. They can't achieve equity without the diversity and inclusion, but that diversity and inclusion is not limited to things all things race related. Why has there been more of a focus on race and less of a focus on the queer Marxist political faction that is pushing gender ideology, not just in every sector and every school, but also in the military?
Yeah, I think it's because most people have heard the phrase critical race theory more than anything else, and it kind of came a little bit before, not precisely, because there's a lot of overlap there with the queer theory, the trans theory, and all the other stuff. But when I talk about this, and that's a great question, I have always tried to talk about the term critical theory and then explain how you just put a word in the middle, like critical queer theory. You see that. I'm sorry.
They do critical fat theory too.
Absolutely. And all of these, so critical queer theory, critical trans theory, critical Hamas theory. Okay. The protesters are linked to the same critical theory. It's Marxism. You need to check out the Red Green Alliance writings that are all over in public about how the Islamists, the Nazi Islamists, are part and parcel part of an alliance with the Reds. And I'm not talking about Republicans. I'm talking about the Marxists. All of this is part of the same thing. It's called critical theory, and you just put a word in the middle, and you can apply it to pretty much anything you want. Critical gender theory is men and women, setting up men and women as the oppressor on the men's part and the oppressed. And that type of thinking is death to a U.S. combat unit. It is death the moment that a round is fired at them. And it starts way before that. That's why we're fighting so hard. SARS was created to fight the Air Force Academy's indoctrination of this Marxist theory of our cadets, which are the premier officers of the future for the United States Air Force. Okay? That's why we're fighting it, is because it is not just at the moment the battle begins, but well before that this foundation gets laid, and it is laid, and you have 4-star level generals and admirals all the way down to the lowest supervisors, both civilian and military, in the Department of Defense that are pushing this indoctrination, that are supporting this indoctrination, and that don't have the courage to stand up. There are a lot of reasons why people do that. There are a lot of reasons why the civilian population of Nazi Germany allowed the Holocaust that killed 6 million Jews and gays and mentally ill people in World War II. And the reason is they look out for their own interests. I got to keep my job. I want to keep my retirement. Blah, 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 blah. Well, you got to do that. People did that all the way to the ovens in the Holocaust. And the same thing is happening today before your eyes. And it's not just in the United States, but in the U.S. We still have our rights. We still have our Second Amendment. We still have our ability to demand redress of our grievances from our government. And this must stop, and Congress is the one that has to stop it. It needs to be defunded, just like they stopped the COVID vaccine illegal order mandate in the NDAA of 2024. They need to stop this and defund it and eliminate these people from the Department of Defense. Every one of them, civilians, military, educators, all of them. Zero out the DEI budget and start eliminating people so that we can grow new leaders that are not Marxists, because that's what they are. Well, we're at the end of the show, folks. We're out of time, unfortunately. But tomorrow we'll have Jeff Dorn. He's the CEO of a new social media company called Pickaxe. It's not going to be censored at all. And he's also a very good speaker on cultural issues, national security, and everything else. So we'll have a great time talking to him tomorrow on Training Tuesday here at the Rob Maness Show at Patriot.tv. We'll see you then.